everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name's Bliss, aka Die Hard Mummy, and this is little Harrison. He is almost 5 months old next week. And this is my very first YouTube video on this channel. The intention of the channel is basically to share my experiences, my personal experiences with parenting, mummyhood, and then lots of different things in between as they come up. So I hope you guys enjoy it, get some value from it. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe, leave me a comment if there's anything in particular you want me to talk about. I'm pretty much an open book, so let's just give it a go. So most of you will probably be aware at the moment we're in the midst of this corona crisis, COVID-19. So it's obviously been a really intense time for everyone, including parents. Mental health is such a focus, as well as, you know, things like keeping up your fitness and exercise, just even if it's like a walk in the morning outdoors in the fresh air. And just making sure that you're doing things that make you smile, because parenting is really tough. And, you know, when you can't get out of the house and things are limited in regards to what you can do to let off steam or vent, it's just really important to have a good support network. And if you don't have much of a support network around you, then just making sure that you're making time to do things that you enjoy, even if it's, you know, hubby giving baby a bottle so that you can have a nice shower or bath, or just make sure that you look after yourself. So today's video is basically about, I just wanted to do like a really down-to-earth real chat about breastfeeding, because I know that both times when I was pregnant, I was really thoughtful about what my breastfeeding journey would be like. I also wondered, you know, what would be involved? Was it going to be easy? Would it be difficult? Would I fail? All these sorts of questions ran through my mind, and I was really looking for, I guess, like anecdotal information from other mums about how they'd found it, what I could expect. So everybody knows that there is a real push for breastfeeding when you have a baby. That's safe to say. And I just wanted to do a chat around pros and cons of breastfeeding, if you can call it cons. I don't know. I'm super non-judgmental about this topic. When it comes to feeding baby, it's honestly do what works for you and your family and your baby, and also for your mental health. I have had 2 babies, so this is actually our second son, Harrison, and our first baby, Joshua, he passed away at 4 months old due to SIDS. So we lost him in November of 2018, and then had this one November of last year, 2019. So pretty crazy time for us. We miss his brother so much, but we learnt so much from our time with him as well. And so when I refer to his brother and my first child, that's who I'm referring to as Joshy. And then there's, of course, this little man. Yeah. Little Chabla. So he's just going to be playing down here. There's a bit of a handful at the moment, so we'll see how long I last. So let's get started without further ado. Let's start with the pros of breastfeeding. So if you're trying to make a decision as to whether you think breastfeeding is for you, want to know what to expect, let's start there, and then I can talk about potentially like some challenges you might face, or that I face. It's all personal. It could be totally different for someone else, but this is basically what my experience has been. So one of the first pros I'd like to talk about is obviously the fact that it's the most natural food that you can give baby. It literally comes from your body, where they came from. It is specifically designed for baby, you know, bioavailable to them, has the nutrients that you as a mother have within your body. It's going to be one of the, I wouldn't say the most nutritious, because, you know, things like formula are also very nutritionally balanced now, in many ways even more so than your own body, because like I don't know about you, but I'm not always 100% up to date with my vitamins, or we all have deficiencies. So I definitely don't think that it's, you know, one's better than the other in regards to nutritional balance. I just think that it's the most natural. We could just say that. It's the most natural form of milk you can give your baby. So, you know, it's really amazing breast milk. You can use it in lotions. It gives you amazing baby skin. FYI, I'll do another post on the lotion later, but yeah. You can freeze it for up to 6 months to use in bottles, or, you know, if you want to stir it into mash when you're introducing solids. It's really, really wonderful. I am always amazed by the benefits of breast milk and how amazing it is that we can even just provide for our children. That's incredible. The free part is a big plus, I think, for a lot of people in this day and age. Like, formula is quite expensive. You're looking at, on average, about $30 a tub or a tin, whatever you want to call it. It's just one less thing that you have to spend money on, even if you're spending money on nappies, creams, clothes, cots, all that sort of stuff. Food is like the number one thing you need to provide. So if you can save money on that, why not? But if not, there are also, you know, a huge range of formulas and different price points, and you can investigate for yourself and see what is the best one for you and your family and your baby. But yeah, just in regards to pure price point, it's free. It is another facet of bonding with your baby. So I wouldn't say that you can't bond with your baby if you don't breastfeed. So with my first son, Joshy, I did expressing mostly. So I did 2 weeks of exclusively just on the breast, and then we moved into expressing because for me at that point, he was eating a lot. I couldn't cope with the frequency of the feeding, which is, as I found, totally normal, and had the same thing with Harry, but I just sort of persisted this time. But with Joshy, he started pumping big amounts into bottles, and he was happy as Larry. Still bonded on the bottle. So, and there's cuddles, there's playtime, there's putting Bubby to sleep. There's so many opportunities for bonding. So it's definitely not just breastfeeding, but breastfeeding just adds another facet that you can enjoy. I really love it. But yeah, you're not missing out on anything if you don't breastfeed, because bonding happens in so many moments. You're his or her mum, you know, like, it's very difficult not to bond, really. But it's sweet. You know, I really love that aspect of bonding. So another positive is that after 6 weeks, it really, really gets super, super easy. And you will be glad that you persisted. I will talk about the difficulties in the beginning that I had in the next section of the cons. But yeah, once you get past six weeks, it's so easy. It is like second nature. You will be glad that you persisted. There's no sterilizing, there's no equipment. Wherever you are, you just whip out the boob. It's easy. You know, it's portable. And the other thing I want to talk about is supply, because a lot of people have worries about supply, and I think every mum does. Like, I definitely, when I was pregnant, I was thinking, okay, I hope that my supply will be good. Definitely with Josh. With Harry, I sort of had an idea because I'd done it before. So when it comes to supply, I really don't think there are many people who would have supply issues unless they had a medical reason, or there was some, you know, huge stress factor that was impacting onset of supply. I think most of the time you're going to have a great supply as long as baby is feeding. And I will tell you what to do if baby is not feeding, which can happen in the beginning as well in the con section. But yeah, as long as you're getting feeds happening, your supply is going to be exactly what baby needs, sometimes more. So don't worry about that. It is very logical how it works. It's not like, oh, some people get great supply and some don't. It literally is. As long as you're feeding and pumping that milk, you're going to have supply. Yes, mate. Another positive I want to talk about is that now with new research, and even Australian Breastfeeding Association has put a lot of information out regarding this, You can actually drink alcohol when you're breastfeeding. You just need to plan ahead and you need to think carefully about when you do it. So there's actually an app called Feed Safe, which I utilize, and you can put in, like, so I'll give Harry a full feed and then I'll have a wine, which is one standard drink. I don't usually have more than one because, to be honest, time-wise, it's just stretching the feeds out too long. So one standard drink, you pop it into the app, and then... Hey, mate. Oh, Ready? Ooh! I've got to keep this one moving. He's boisterous. So when it comes to the app, you just pop in the drink and it will time it and let you know when your breast milk is free of alcohol. And the way that this works, and the reason why the second time round I have allowed myself to have a drink here and there, whereas I didn't with Joshy, is because I actually understand how blood alcohol works this time. So with breast milk, it is literally the same as blood alcohol. So when alcohol is in your blood, it will be in your breast milk. When it's out of your blood, it's out of your breast milk. So you don't need to actually pump and dump. You can just time it properly so that the period that you're not feeding is when you have alcohol in your blood, and then when it's gone, it's out of your breast milk as well, and you can feed again. So that was revolutionary for me. It makes sense. And so this app is really, really, really handy. I would highly recommend downloading it. So, you know, there is some fun in life for mums, breastfeeding mums. Most medications as well are totally fine to breastfeed with. So there's very few medications that you cannot breastfeed with. So I want people to understand that, you know, sometimes mums feel like, oh God, I'm on this or that medication, or I can never take anything to help me ever again from a medical perspective. That's not true. Just be in touch with your GP or health professional or midwife or whoever is looking after you, and they will be able to tell you which medications are totally safe, and just go for it. Like, don't stop yourself from getting the medicine you need because you want to breastfeed. You can do both. It's just about asking the questions and finding out the information. Okay, so we're breastfeeding now. So the other thing that I'm finding, particularly at the moment with this whole lockdown and pandemic and things like that, is that it's really nice to be able to just have food on hand for Bub, not have to worry about stockpiling formula and things like that. There is this really instinctual feeling of like, I'm protecting my family during situations like this and providing for my family. So it's really, really nice to be able to do that and just feel like I've always got food for Bub. Breastfeeding is definitely nicer than pumping, in my opinion. I've done both. But pumping definitely has its place. So I will talk more about that. But yeah, another pro of breastfeeding is that yeah, I'm talking. Mummy's talking. You will enjoy it more than pumping. I want to address the whole weight loss thing because it seems to be like this common factor that people think of when it comes to breastfeeding, that you will definitely lose weight. My experience has been I have not lost weight when breastfeeding unless I'm eating differently. So baby's playing with my nursing necklace, so I've got to stay awkwardly down like this. Is that right, mate? You find that funny? Do you find that funny? Yeah. Yeah, so unless I'm actually looking at caloric intake, like if I eat the way that they recommend, I will not lose weight when breastfeeding, and they recommend that you eat a lot. So that's a little bit of a myth in my opinion. And you know, like in the initial days of being a mum, exercise is hard to get into a really strict routine with, and eating is also a little bit all over the shop because you're just trying to survive, not sleeping, etc. So I would say that you can lose weight when breastfeeding if you're also taking other measures to lose weight. I would recommend not losing weight too quickly when you're breastfeeding because that could affect supply in my view, but I am losing weight at the moment in a gradual way. just by managing my diet a little bit, eating still, you know, like a nice varied diet, but just portion control, which I suck at usually. So, and then exercise. So yeah, you have to do something additional. It's not just like a magic pill where you start breastfeeding and lose weight. Cool. So let's talk about some cons, or for lack of a better word, maybe we would call them challenges. Let's call them challenges. So when it comes to breastfeeding, I would say in both experiences that I've had, I have had babies who have not latched on. They come out full term, ready to go in every way, but they will not latch on to the breast. So they will play with it, they will suckle it, but they do nothing to actually get any type of milk flow going at all. So I have had that challenge both times. I think I've also got I've got a really, really good supply, but when in those first few days where it's colostrum, my colostrum is really thick and sticky. So it does take effort for baby to get it out. And and it's not flowing to a point, like I wouldn't say mine is watery or free flowing. It's quite sticky and viscous. So baby needs to really grab on and get a good suck. This is a challenge that a lot of mummies will face, and they don't talk about it. And it could be enough to end your journey before it even starts, because it is such a challenge. So what I found worked, I did persist with it. There were times where Harrison was literally screaming on the breast in the first 2 weeks, screaming, not feeding, screaming, and I was in tears. I felt so worthless and just useless. Like I was talking to my midwife saying, I feel like I'm harming him with my breast. Like this is not what I wanted it to be. And she said, look, you have got to go to a lactation consultant at this point. Yes, mate. So what actually made a difference for me was going to the lactation consultant. And literally in that one session, it was just a couple of positional things that Harry wasn't liking that I was doing and how I was holding him. Literally in that session, he started feeding properly, and we haven't really looked back since. Yes, Barbie. Woo. Here you go. Yeah, we haven't really looked back since, and I was amazed by how quickly it was solved. So definitely worth spending the $100, $150, $200 to go see a lactation consultant. If they're good, you should only have to see them once or twice. I only had to see her once for a couple of hours. And it could be the make or break of your journey. And I'm so glad that I went this time, because at this point with my first child, Joshie, I had given up on direct breastfeeding and was just doing expressing, and for 3 months. So we are actually at the 5-month mark now, and we've made it much further than I did the first time. And that's because I did persist. I did go to see the lactation consultant. So if you need help, go and get it. Don't feel like you have to do it alone at home, because that will be the end of the journey. I was at a breaking point. I was like, if he's screaming on the breast like this and not feeding, it's not working. I'm going to move to expressing if this lactation appointment does not work. And it did. So, you know, in relation to pumping, so in those initial couple of weeks where Harry wasn't eating from the breast, I knew from the first time that it was really important to keep supply going. So I pumped in place of Harry feeding. I would attempt to feed him, and then if not, I would pump immediately. So that way my breast was still getting used to producing the milk that I needed to for Harry in absence of his feeding. So babies do not necessarily just get it. You think it's really natural. You think, you know, as long as I've got the supply and I know what to do, it'll be okay. But it's a 2-person journey. It's baby as well. And so if baby's not getting it, then you're still going to have some challenges with it. So again, lactation consultant, can't recommend high enough. But pump in the first couple of weeks, regardless of what baby's doing. I would say just to build that supply and get your boobs used to producing. If baby's feeding all the time, no problem, right? But just be smart about it. Just think, has baby fed a full feed here? If not, I'm going to pump. So unless you use a bottle at times, breastfeeding can be really 24/7 for mum. It's really, you can get touched out in the early weeks because it is so frequent. They're doing these few feeds, but really frequent. So you can start to feel like you're always taking off your top. I literally just walked around the house with no top on. I just had no bra, no top, boobs out, access all the time. And that was way, way easier for me than fiddling with tops and things like that. Once they get into more of a routine, you can start to wear your fancy breastfeeding tops and clothes. But yeah, in those initial weeks, the frequency can be really high. And then also at night, however many multiple night wakes and feedings you're having, it's all up to you as mum, unless you decide to express a bottle and get daddy to help. So I usually get my husband involved fairly early on, like after about a week or two, doing a bottle. And that also just gets them used to using a bottle as well as the breast. And so now Harry takes both, and so did Joshy. Biting during teething. So you often hear about this one, and I am experiencing it. I have an early teether, so he's got 2 little bottom teeth already. He got them at 4 months old. Do you want to show everyone your teeth? Yes, I think they can see it. I'll show you if you can see them there, but so he got those very early on in my breastfeeding journey this time, so I have had to deal with things that maybe you wouldn't have to deal with until 6 months in regards to teeth and biting. My experience and opinion on this is if you can persist, do. But I also feel like a lot of the information out there is kind of not very caring towards mums or their nipples. And it's like, yeah, you know, just suck it up. And I'm like, no, you know, we need to acknowledge that it's not nice having someone bite hard on your breast or graze your breast when they're feeding. So it's okay to feel like it's really rough. It hurts. It does. But you know, if they're actually feeding properly, with their tongue in the right place and they're sucking and feeding, they will not bite you. But the fact of the matter is they spend a lot of time on the breast doing all sorts of things. There will be a time where they'll bite you. Sometimes it's just merely to get your attention. So yeah, you may find that you need to get your nipple cream out again and start taking a little bit of care of the condition of your nipples. I also found, like, I'm not really a gimmicky type person with products, but my friend gave me those breast pads that they're like cold gel, and you don't have to refrigerate them or anything. You just open them up and they're cooling, and I put them on my nipples during that time where he was particularly biting and grazing me, and that seemed to help just temporarily as a soothing measure. But just even expressing a little bit of breast milk and then rubbing that on the nipples. So at worst, I just got a little bit of grazing. They were quite red and sore, but you know, there was no bleeding or anything like that. So it's okay. It's just, let's acknowledge that it's not nice to be bitten on your boob. Well, I would say that breastfeeding is also not perfect. So I think sometimes people portray breastfeeding as this perfect, easy, natural journey. Yes, as I said, after 6 weeks, after that initial period of getting them to latch, getting them to feed full feeds, that's all very difficult. But after that, it does get better. It's super easy, but they still go through periods, like, you know, Harry, when he started teething and getting these teeth, he went through a fussy feeding strike. He went through a feeding strike, and as a mum, you're like, oh my God, this baby has not eaten properly for 3 days. So I'm like, what do I do here? You know? So what I found was that it was really handy that Harry was able to take a bottle. And what happened in the end was we ended up going into emergency for something else. We went in for a rash that he had developed in relation to a baby oil that we had used. And they were like, we really want to see him eat something before you leave here. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do because he's not taking the boob. He did not take it. And this is a baby that was successfully breastfeeding for months before this point. So in the end, what I was able to do was I had my manual pump in my diaper bag, highly recommend. I quickly pumped out 100 mils and gave it to him, and he fed for the first time properly in 3 days. So, and during that 3 days, you know, he was getting on the boob, having a little sip, but it was definitely not proper feeds, and he would have been like probably eating about 50% of what he should have been. So it was still a worry, but, you know, obviously he was not at a critical point. Otherwise I would have taken him in heaps earlier. So it's just something where you'll see when you're counting feeds and meals and you're concerned about what they're eating, you really notice when they're not eating enough. Yes, mate. Yes. There we go. So I found in that situation that it was really handy to be able to use a bottle. Breast is not going to save you in all situations. I believe that bottles and pumps have a real place in today's journey with breastfeeding. And it allowed me in the end to continue breastfeeding past that point. You're going to have times where the boob just doesn't work. Anyway, that was my experience. If you've had a different experience, please share. But that's what I found. There is a risk of baby using the boob as a dummy. So what I found is sometimes nighttime can be a bit hit and miss with feeds overnight with my particular baby, because sometimes he is so sleepy that he just uses it as a resettle tool and then doesn't take a feed and then wakes up soon after quite hungry. So sometimes it is good to have a bottle. I'm still doing the breastfeed. I'm actually doing most of the feeds overnight, but I have introduced a bottle now because he started doing this at this age, around the 4 to 5 month mark. So, and he's not really a baby that does tend to use the boob as a dummy, because he actually uses a dummy as well. But I've just found overnight when he's sleepy, that's a bit of a time waster for everyone, because we're waking up to feed and then we're sort of like, oh, he's just resettled and then he's hungry again. So that can be a little bit messy in my experience, but during the day, no problems, you know. And again, on the bottle factor, you may find that you need to, so they often talk about, good boy, cluster feeding in the evenings. So you got to fill them up in the evenings, and that's when supply sort of drops around that 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, like maybe 5 o'clock to 7. There's a bit of a drop before it peaks again overnight. So you may find that you either want to pump a large amount into a bottle and feed them before bed, so they're nice and full tummy before bed, and get a bit of a stretch out of them. I'm a big fan of doing the bedtime bottle. I pretty much always do it. Or you can cluster feed, so you can go burp, 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 burp all night until bedtime. So from like 5 to 7. I don't have a problem with doing that either if I thought that it was filling him up. I just feel like it's nice to get dad in on the bottle. One feed. I don't want to be naked on this. Can you not take my clothes up? You can see these necklaces come in handy. Yeah, so I find that it's just quicker and easier for the family to do the one feed. But also, you know, if I'm watching TV, there is no drama with just cluster feeding. It's quite easy on the breast. But I find at this age, again, he's gotten fussy with that and wants the bottle at night. So he wants that one bottle. He's aware that that is part of the routine. And if I try to offer breast, he is like, what is this? So he wants his bottle at night, breastfeeding during the day, and then potentially a breastfeed overnight as well. But so he gets into his habit, you know, and they get into their little habits as well. So you've got to work with that. And those are pretty much, I guess, my challenges that I face during breastfeeding, and just showing like, look, it's not perfect. It can be tricky. It can be a journey. my journey is still going. So my intention is to feed exclusively for 6 months, and then we're going to be introducing solids over the next few weeks, just for like a lunchtime meal and breastfeed alongside that. I'm not sure how long I'm going to go with breastfeeding. I really enjoy it, so I don't see any reason why I couldn't do a few feeds a day for a while, but let's take it one day at a time. I think the only other thing is letdown could be a challenge sometimes, so both ways. So some people have a slow letdown, some people have a super fast letdown. Mine is the latter. I have a very fast letdown. So sometimes if you want to settle baby on the boob and put them to sleep or just calm them, and you've got this fast letdown of milk gushing out, it can actually upset them and go the other way. So I've not had a lot of, it's a bit hit and miss for me with settling on the boob, but when it comes to feeding, it's handy. Likewise, they can tug and pull at this age because they've got to get that fatty milk out at the end, which takes just that little bit more effort, and so you'll see them come on and off, on and off, on and off. Persist with it because they will get the milk they need. Look at him, he's just, you know, he's manhandling me now. Guys, I know this video has been, ow, no biting. I know this video has been a bit disjointed, but I hope that it is giving you a real picture of what feeding is like, as well as the pros and cons of breastfeeding. So I just want it to be a really real talk about this stuff, because I feel like I don't want to present just the positive side or just the negative side. So I really hope that it's informed you. If you have any further questions, please let me know. I'm sorry that it's been so up and down, but that's mum life. Isn't it? Naughty boy. So yeah, I hope this has helped. Please subscribe, and if you want to know more, I mean, some other topics I was thinking about was maybe my routine with feeding, my routine, like whether I use a routine or not, routine or demand feed. I've also been thinking about doing maybe like what I do for sleep, in regards to sleep and naps, routine during the day. So just let me know if there's anything in particular you want me to talk about, and then I will also bring up little topics as they come along. So lots of love, everyone, and bye from Harrison. Yes, see, your top says that it's always fun with mum, so don't cry. All right, see you guys.